conversation that we are having. I'm Dr. Seema. I'm currently working as a vertical head FMCG for South Asia at Maersk. I've been in the industry for roughly 20 years, been in supply chain operations, supply chain strategy, planning, procurement, blah, 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 for 20 years. And I mean, most of the time, most of my journey has been on the consumer side, that is working with customers like Amazon, Tata, Starbucks, Unilever, and now I am on the logistics solutioning side. So look forward to the conversation.
Perfect. So as we are aware, you have worked for very high level companies like Unilever, Starbucks, Maersk. And I believe that itself shows that how awesome you are with the work that you do. So the most important question is, what are the leadership lessons and skills that have shaped your journey across these diverse spaces?
Okay. I think what works most, first of all, leadership is about making sure that you have a vision, you are able to transmit that vision to the team below, and then you are able to help them achieve that vision by enabling or removing enabling this ecosystem, or removing roadblocks which may be preventing people from executing it or even embracing it at times, right? And when this is clear, that what you want to do to the logistics ecosystem, whether it's for your company, for the industry, um, then then rest of the things fall in place. So it's not about uh, just moving KPIs from one level to another. Because why does that KPI exist? What is it that we are trying to improve, not in terms of KPI, but in terms of business deliverable? Because supply chain KPI is one thing, business deliverable is another. Are we trying to improve revenue? Are we trying to reduce costs? Are we trying to gain market share? Once you start thinking the goal backwards, then your vision becomes clearer and clearer. Second thing I see is, I think everyone talks about communication, but true communication is not about putting great gimmick around having 3-letter 5-year plan, or where we say, okay, so and so by and so. That's how a lot of um, easy to remember goalposts are set. But it's also about communicating why people should buy into it. So one is, I say, okay, I want to reach there, but why should people follow me? Because and that why is not just about PNL. Why is about a larger reason, that which brings pride in people to follow it, which brings a sense of ownership in bringing it, which brings a sense of community goal for the company that people want to do, right? Unless that is done, then people would just do it because they've been asked to do, not because they want to do it, right? And I see that communicating in the right way, it makes a lot of difference. So um, when you're able to get your team to rally for a particular goal, then the journey becomes easier. So I see. I don't think you can overemphasize the importance of communication. It can always get better. I'm not saying I know all of it, but there's always a way to get better. There is always a way to reach closer to people's own vision for their work, vision for their career. How to align all of that, right? That's what leadership is about.
True. So the way I like to understand it from what you said is, clarity and communication go hand in hand. If you
Yeah,
have clarity of your goals and ideas, you can communicate it better and get your goals in a better way out
yeah,
for the execution purposes, right?
yes, yes.
Perfect. Wow, that is something I have learned in, I think, with the whole university projects and everything as well. Like, if you know what you're working towards, it becomes easier to even talk
Yeah,
your way through it.
yes, yes.
True. Ma'am, you have spoken a lot on other social media platforms about how empowering women in this space, especially logistics and supply chain, is so important. So,
Yeah.
what inspired you to raise your voice on this matter? What was your mission, and what does empowerment look like for you?
For me, empowerment is about ability to pursue what you want to pursue in career, in in professional, personal, whichever life you want to pursue, right? And when I started my career when I would say uh, I didn't see people saying, "Why are you joining supply chain?" But when I entered the field, I just found not too many women around, and
True.
uh, and there was a sense of I wouldn't say people wouldn't like women, but they would just wonder how would we place them in some of the difficult locations, and
True.
for the right reason, because it's a matter of concern. It
Yeah.
has been a matter of concern the way the industry has evolved. And while it's right to have concern for your team, for your employees, for your colleagues, if it's becoming a roadblock in letting them make career choices,
Mhm.
then that's something which has to be addressed and not passed off as, oh, it's a matter of concern, so we shouldn't let them be there, right? And that's why it's important for everyone to know what's true nature of this industry. Of course, people can make choice, and it applies to both men and women whether they want to be in this industry. And is it something that we can do to make it more conducive for women? I wouldn't say men and women. Men are already there, but if it were not for men, then I would have said men and women, right? So from that aspect, I see a lot of misunderstandings about this industry. It's not so bad. Let me be clear. Uh, While there was a sense of curious suspicion whether I would excel in this, whether I would feel like I don't belong there.
Yeah.
But it's not like that. If you are if
True.
you are if you are delivering uh,
Uh-huh.
just like in any other function, your
Mhm.
male colleagues would also support you, your team would also support you, your superiors would also support you. Yes, if the infra itself is not enabled for women, for example, if it's if your factories are located in a place where the network is not there, where there are no ways to book a taxi to come back home, where there are places where there are not even women washrooms there, that's a complete no-go. I mean, you can't have
Yeah.
you can't expect women to excel in such an environment. So there, of
Exactly.
course, you have to provide those enablers. But saying that the work is something that you can't do, no, I don't agree with that. And
Yeah.
therefore, it's important to let everybody know this is what it is. Women should be welcome. Women
Yeah.
should welcome themselves in this sector, and let it make a more gender balanced function. And
Mhm.
the fact is that from where when I joined to today, I see that trend anyway changing. I see more women
True.
very cool about, oh, you're working in supply chain. It doesn't come with, oh, you are in supply chain. So
Yeah.
so I think it's already changing, and it's a good thing to hear.
True. And this is something I relate to. In fact, as we had spoken on call, the reason I
Yes,
am also doing this is to convince myself and people around me that, hey, it is not that bad. It's
yes,
actually a sector you can enter. And I believe
yes,
that even when the sector was like evolving, they saw more men. So they made the facilities and everything also more man friendly. They didn't realize that women would take interest in this sector. And I believe if they realize that more women are joining, they'll actually adapt to it accordingly. I read
yeah,
it somewhere that COVID did help our sector a lot, especially because it was assumed that logistics has to be in-person job, but COVID proved that this sector can also be work from home in specific roles which are possible. So that
yeah,
that has to be a very good change, especially for
yeah,
women who are, say, on a career break or trying to just start their journeys and are struggling to manage their families and the career
yeah,
together.
yeah, indeed.
But ma'am, it is very inspiring how you have been talking about it and trying to get people to know more about the sector. In fact, you agreed very quickly when I even approached you, which is a very, very important and a very big opportunity for me coming from someone like you.
So happy. It's a subject which is very dear to me, and if people want to listen about it, people want to at least have an opinion which is more educated opinion and not just hearsay. Happy to
Mhm.
make that right opinion for people. Yeah.
True. Ma'am, as we just said that there are some specific barriers which women face in this sector. So what do you think what you have found to be the most effective strategy for breaking them down?
Okay. I think first of all, for woman herself,
Mhm.
knowing her own, I'm not saying boundaries in a negative sense, but knowing her own work domain. What does she feel comfortable about? It's important to know
Mm-hmm.
that, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, someone who has, let's say, family constraints for whatever reason may
Mm-hmm.
not be comfortable with traveling outside, or may be
True.
comfortable with traveling morning to evening, but cannot stay over. Maybe there is a child at home
Mm-hmm.
or a ailing parent, etc. Again, that can again I keep saying that applies to both men and women. We
True.
keep ignoring men, but they also have children. They also
Yeah.
have ailing parents, right?
True.
So I will keep it gender neutral. And the fact is that logistics is a 24/7 kind of ecosystem. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
more things happen at night during rather than day, because a lot of intercity movements are active during night, while they are not so active in the daytime because of the restrictions, etc. Now, when you are working in an ecosystem which demands you at odd hours,
Mm-hmm.
it may be seen as flexibility, that yeah, you work late night and then next day you can be in the office in a different time, a little flexibility there, so that you manage your work. Now,
True.
somebody may thrive on that flexibility, that maybe, that in odd hours, because she has to pick up phones. In the daytime, if she's reaching late in office and that's aligned with the boss, let's say, then, she may be able to spend more time in the morning with
The
her or
kids.
his
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
children or whoever, right? So one has to know what is workable for him or her,
Mm-hmm.
and whether the work responsibilities will align to that. Now, the
True.
fact is, like I said, logistics is a 24/7. And odd hours do happen many a
Mm-hmm.
times, right? At the same time, so traveling is one aspect. Then comes the safety aspect. That when you're
Mm-hmm.
traveling to far off locations, or some of the not so well connected places where warehouses are established or where factories are established,
Mm-hmm.
how do you make sure that your entire visit there is planned in such a way, in line with your organization and your manager, that you don't feel like, why am I doing this? I don't need to go through this, right? And that has to be aligned with your family also. That it's not that I'm going there and I'm going to get killed or robbed there. These are the things which are accessible. Today, in fact,
True.
with technology being a big enabler for safety, for communication, for transparency and visibility, it's much easier. I can send my live location to my family that, hey, I have reached so and so. I can do video call as and when.
Yeah.
I can have SOS options on my phone if it's there. It's okay to align your team around as well, that in odd hours I would be traveling, and just be in the lookout in case you don't hear from me and so to hour. It's very common in fact my team and team, whenever we go out, and that I'm talking about city like Mumbai, which is very safe.
Yeah.
Even if we go out for a dinner or something, it gets late, it's normal for people to drop a text on the group that, hey, I reach home when it gets late. It's normal, right? So
True.
when you have this kind of ecosystem, it creates a sense of safety. And I would say, all this is requires communication. One thing is,
True.
I don't want to look weak in front of my boss. I wouldn't even say that, hey, can you just make sure that, in the arrangements, these things are taken care when I travel? Or can you put a buddy around so I can communicate in case there is an issue? Opening up and saying that, it's part of being in a safe environment. And
Mm-hmm.
women, sometimes they wouldn't want to look weak, so they wouldn't say that, or they would think,
True.
oh, it's unsafe, so let me not even venture. Both are wrong options. Right option
True.
is to know how safe or unsafe it is. If you can take safety measures, so that and align everyone in your
Yeah.
organization, in your families, so that they also don't worry about you, and make sure it's done. So yeah.
Perfect. So the way I understood it is know what works for you and communicate it well. So based on that, the roles are assigned to you. So like if I'm quite vocal that I can't step out at night, then I need to ensure that my role is also something which is going to be not
Yes,
requiring that. So
yes,
then
yes,
it's like you can't apply for a night shift and complain that hey, I have to work at night.
yes, exactly, exactly.
Perfect. That does make sense. And I think if once we have that clarity, it will help us manage these many barriers in a better, effective way
Yeah,
once
yeah,
everyone has that clarity. Wow, ma'am, that is a very amazing way of seeing it and making life easier because it's more simplified rather than being like, why is this happening? Why can't we do this? be
Yeah.
like, what works for you, you apply for that. Wow.
Yes.
So, how do you see? So, you have spoken a lot about inclusion, diversity, and operational performance. So, what do you think? How do you see the relation between the three? And especially in a male dominated sector like ours.
Yeah. 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 Again, I would like to expand your definition of inclusion and
Mm-hmm.
diversity, Ayushi. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that while I know this forum is primarily for women in logistics. But the fact is, why this whole topic of inclusion and diversity was started in the it was, you know,
First place,
maybe
yeah.
mainly for having a gender mix, but today even gender definition is way wider than male female. So
It
that's why I
was,
would say
yeah.
yes. So let's talk about inclusion, about diversity of background and
Mm-hmm.
diversity of perspective. Diversity,
Mm-hmm.
when we say, for example, okay, male or female, or let's say other genders,
Yeah.
or we talk about coming from a math stream or engineering stream or some other stream, or talking about having worked in rural sector or urban sector. In fact, today diversity is expanded to the extent that when we are hiring, let's say today in a shipping company, let's say Maersk, they're looking for people specifically for non-shipping background at
Mm-hmm.
times. Why? Because shipping industry works in certain way, and that's become the standard norm for shipping industry, and everybody is following the same thing. Now, today when we are working in such a dynamic environment where
Mm-hmm.
we know our old rule book is not applicable anymore, and that applies to all the industries because disruption is it's part of life, it's part of existence. And after COVID, there is, when we say disruption, it's not just every time, okay, a port congestion, you have a rule book to follow, you have a playbook to follow. When there is a capacity constraint on ocean, there is a rule book to follow. But the fact is, disruption can be of the nature that there are threats, there are sanctions, there are tariffs as we speak. The nature of the flow of, movement itself is unpredictable. We don't know what will Mr. President speak tomorrow. So it's a very, very dynamic space we are living in. Now, when we are saying that the existing playbook doesn't apply every day, then we need to have people who will bring a different playbook. And that will come when people come from a different background because they may have solved problems in a different way in different industries. So diversity is a way, way wider subject. And I think organizations do realize that. However, it's
Mm-hmm.
easy to quantify when we say male female ratio. And
Yeah.
that's a ask from regulators as well. That's very easy to justify. That's easy to translate into actionables. But when
Mm-hmm.
I, let's say, if I would like to hire in my team, I would like to have a mix of people who are very, very, who are like go-getters, who just
Yeah.
give it liberation, they would just go. That, I'm talking about now the traits diversity.
Yeah.
And there are people who would pause and think. There are people who are strategists. There are people who would just invade the moment you say something that this has to be done. They would go to the deep root of it, why this happened, and they get into kind of details that others won't. So it's a diversity of trait. Now that may come from a male or a female or a younger person or an older person with a sales background or a logistics background or whatever. And that's what I would hire for, right? And it's now again, this is difficult to translate into actionables when I'm hiring on CV. You can't put
Yeah.
all this in the CV. And therefore, it may not be so commonplace. But I think
Yeah.
eventually everyone would get there because why we need diversity is for diversity of thoughts, perspectives, solutions, mindsets. And the proxy of it could be anything.
Ma'am, I really like the way you explained it, but I have a doubt. Now, when I talk about myself, I come from a business background and I'm doing my specialization in global logistics. But the way we have studied it, it differs from the engineering side. Most of the people I talk to from the logistics and the supply chain sector are engineers. The way they think and function differs way too much than the business sided people. So even when I'm applying for jobs, I'm looking for it, they have that specific requirement of either an engineering degree or that specific specialization. Now, as you said, it does bring a perspective, but I don't understand why companies stick specifically to the requirement that this engineering and this degree because it's going to be more beneficial for the company. But then my doubt is, so where do people like me go? Like, I am from business and logistics side, but the requirements itself cuts me off. Because yeah, I don't meet the
Yeah,
requirements. So then it
yeah,
becomes
yeah.
problematic for us. Yeah.
So that's true. Like I said, it's easy to quantify, some of the parameters. So
Uh-huh.
you may see a lot of diversity positions, but
Mm-hmm.
when they say diversity, basically gender diversity positions, but you wouldn't see positions which say non-engineering because
Yeah.
they don't know the success of it. I mean, the fact
True.
is that maybe some decades back, even they would have asked male candidate preferred. Today, nobody writes
Yeah.
that, right?
True.
So times are changing. But
Uh-huh.
just to give you an example, Amazon as a company,
Mm-hmm.
their diversity definition is way wider, and
Mm-hmm.
which where they truly look for. I mean, it's kind of left open ended as well, but they have
Yeah.
defined it as well. So they would look for people from defense background. Now they may or
Mm-hmm.
may not be engineering. They would look for, of course, in gender diversity also their definition is way wider, and
Mm-hmm.
at times they look for something like your background, which is non-engineering business background, and but
Business aspect. Yeah.
understands logistics, right?
Uh-huh.
So some of the more advanced companies are going in that direction. And the fact is, for any change to occur, it doesn't happen overnight. Now, what I'm talking about, broadening the definition of diversity itself, that itself is a new concept. I
True.
don't hear that more often. I mean, I like I said, I hear about gender diversity a lot, but I don't hear about background or perspective diversity.
True.
And I try to talk about it because I think
Yeah.
that's how it should be. So it will take some time for organizations to accept, but the fact
Yeah.
is, the those who are a little ahead in the curve, they already realize it, and therefore they are broadening the definition. And you would see more and more companies accepting it. Of course,
Uh-huh.
their definition may be from it. Everyone we would define their diversity in different ways. Somebody would take from the
Definitely.
educational space, somebody would take from the work experience space, somebody
Mm-hmm.
would take from upbringing, etc., etc. But they will get there. They will surely get there because eventually, when women also get amalgamated in this sector, and then you would have a certain ratio of male female who think in a certain way who are running this industry, then you would need more outside perspective. You would have to
Yeah.
go beyond that male female boundaries. But like I
True.
said, like any other change, it's a process which takes time, but it will surely happen.
Wow. That firstly, thank you so much for introducing me to the idea of this different side of diversity. Because just like everyone, my diversity idea was what we learned back in school, that each and everyone is different. That's it. That's how we
Yeah,
thought. But I was like, oh wow, perspective diversity, how different sectors and different people can be different. And I totally agree with your side. And I genuinely hope that what you said does come true for me. I do end up with a good job in a high company. But yes, right now it's just a tough process where we are working every day to getting ahead in the
yeah,
sector. You have
fantastic.
engaged a lot with education and leadership initiatives.
Hmm.
So, what roles do mentorships and communities play, especially in helping women in the supply chain career?
Okay. Um, See, mentorship and communities or any kind of the support groups, they can't teach you what you already know, or they can't really teach you the skills of the sector.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the things which you really do on the job is learned on the job. But what
True.
it helps you do is it broadens your perspective,
Mm-hmm.
because especially if, let's say, if you are doing the same job for a long period of time, your work, your perspective of work is, this is my manager, this is how he or she thinks, this is his or her mandate, and that is, most people would think, okay, boss knows what is to be done, so okay, this is how it should be done, this is my colleagues, this is the team below, and this is the problem statement. And their perspective of job becomes only that ecosystem if they are staying there for a long time and there is no outside input coming into it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have any kind of support group community where you zoom out of this space and you see yourself what you're contributing to this ecosystem, how does rest of the ecosystem interact with this place where I work,
Mm-hmm.
what is my place in this and rest of the world, and is it perceived? I mean, I may think what we are doing is great, But maybe in rest of the industry we are nowhere. And then if I'm excelling is only this, then my benchmark is not even high
Low,
enough.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So therefore, when you have this mentorship programs from somebody senior who has seen way more than
Yeah.
you, it really helps you see world from a very, very from a bird's eye view. In and it helps you figuring out your journey, because your journey is not your boss's position. I mean, reaching his position or his or the next boss's position. That's not your career. Your career is what best you can be in that. I wouldn't say even in that function, but in the world. It may mean, like, I started my career from finance and I switched to supply chain and now I'm doing sales in supply chain. I didn't know I will chart this journey, but unless I would have thought, if I start my career with, oh, I want to reach in my boss's position, I'll reach only there. I'll not get anything better. But if I start
Definitely.
from, I want to know what is there out in the world. I may like a few things, I may not like a few things. I may be able to do a few things, I may not be able to do a few things, but I want to
True.
do what best I can do. And that may or may not be in this role or the next role
Mhm.
or the role after that, but I'll figure it out. Maybe a mix of all of this, right? And that's why you need to have people who are talking beyond your daily work, your daily KPIs, reports, etc. It could be a mentor, your community, your support groups, etc. That really helps. And when there are stories you hear from those people,
Mhm.
it changes your perspective as well, because your perspective is
True.
again shaped by the people around the ecosystem, the environment in your work.
Mhm.
Now, for example, when I started my career, switching functions was seen as a career suicide. Like, you would it will not be advisable that after you work for 3-4 years in, let's say, finance or whatever, and then you
Mhm.
switch functions, then it would be assumed, no, you're starting from scratch again.
That's
And
yeah.
today it's very common. People do it. I mean, I don't think what I hear from Gen Z. They are very open about it. Okay, just let me try something.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can do it. I'll do it.
True.
Don't think they stamp their CV with supply chain or finance or sales these days,
True.
right?
Yeah.
But this is unthinkable. So
Mhm.
so and that happened because I got inputs from outside where I felt, I need to learn more than what I'm doing. Even if I become the best supply chain person, best finance person, I wouldn't be able to run a business because it takes way more than just that. And therefore, you need to. So it's just so that you can chart your journey more
Yeah.
than what your boss is charting for you. You have a
Mhm.
broader right. Yeah.
Wow, that was really, really awesome. And that is definitely something I am going to remember and learn from. Even talking to you right now is changing a lot of my perspectives and ideas, the way I am seeing the industry and even life, to be honest. Like, we,
Yes.
Gen Z, especially, like at this age, so I'm 22, we feel very pressured, like, okay, I need to have a job, I need to get my life on track, I need to start investing. The way we set bars, and at the same time we are equally flexible, like I don't like my job, I'm planning to switch to another sector, and it does
Yes.
happen like this. We don't think like, okay, I need to wait for a month before I change jobs. We actually are very impulsive, I would say, in that aspect. But at the same time, it works out sometimes. We're like, okay, I'm gonna change from finance to marketing in the next week, gonna take some classes, do some online courses, and just gonna start an internship. And we do feel scared, but we don't mind experimenting, I feel. And it's like that's how we've started defining life, and
Yeah.
it helps sometimes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But it definitely is, the whole mentorship idea was something which I think is very important, because once you have someone who can guide you, that okay, you are seeing the short term goal, but the long term goal is even
Yes.
far better than the way
Yes.
it seems right now. Having someone
Yes.
just say that helps a
Yeah.
lot as well.
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
thank you.